Just before I left school, we used to go to a club in Harrow. It was one of the few places that played reggae music, you know, regularly on a Friday night. And one one night, I got stranded in Ladbroke Grove. Right, I couldn't get back home. At that time, I was living in Kingsbury, and so I ended up having to crash out down there. And I eventually ended up staying there the whole night, the whole day, and it was just so exciting because youth in Ladbroke Grove seemed to have a much greater sense of freedom than people around here, and I think it was a more tightly knit community. The music was one thing, but the other thing I found interesting about Ladbroke Grove, which wasn't happening around Harlesden or anywhere else, was black culture, because you know there were things happening in Ladbroke Grove, like we had the Backyard, for example, and the Black People's Information Centre, which, you know, it's like there was a lot. There was like, this was in the same shop as Backyard. It was downstairs in the basement at a really big library down there with all kinds of books about, you know, black history and black this and black that. And I used to spend a lot of time down there talking to a guy called Cecil Gutsmore, who Cecil was, well, he's now a major professor. He's now back in Jamaica. But he was just so informative about all kinds of stuff. And I used to spend like hours at nights talking to him. In fact, Cecil lived upstairs in the flat. There's all shebeens everywhere. Like I think just on All Saints Road. I mean, there was a mangrove, yeah, where everybody thought used to gamble and things like that. And there's a mangrove restaurant as well. And in the mangrove, there's like, it was all very cultured for us as kids at the time, because, like, you know, was all that Black Power stuff going down. Just down the way from the mangrove, we used to have Basing Street Studio. So a lot of people that used to, you know, go to Basing Street Studio and use the studio, they all ended up at the mangrove to eat food, because everybody loved soul food. So it's come down and, you know, like loads of people, Steve Winwood, maybe Mick Jagger and people like that, they all used to be in Ladbroke Grove. We're working on the Burning album, I think it is, in Basing Street Studio. And I don't know if the Rolling Stones got wind of it and they book out the whole studio. they were in the biggest studio upstairs. And it's like, I saw Mick Jagger in the kitchen on the studio just where we were. I thought, Mick Jagger doing there in the kitchen, you know? And just very casually, starry business. So he was asking me if I wanted a cup of tea. So I said, yeah, sure. So I said, what are you doing down here, kind of thing. I goes, well, we're working upstairs, casually, you know. So out came Bunny Wailer from in the studio, and saw Mick in the kitchen making a tea. So Mick was asking him if he wanted a cup of tea. So he said, "What are you doing in the kitchen, man?" So Mick said, "Oh, I'm just making some tea." So I'm saying, "That's a boss in them thing out, like he's saying they're out of bounds, you know." So he's telling Mick Jagger to get out of the kitchen, right? Right? But he didn't actually know that it was Mick Jagger. He didn't know it was Mick Jagger actually, because later on, Tyrone Downey, who's a keyboard player, came in the studio and he said, "Boy, I don't know who's upstairs." So they said, "The Rolling Stones upstairs, you know." So Bunny Wailer comes out and he goes, "Oh, you mean the boy Mick Jagger?" Right? You know, long I want to meet them boy. The Mick will go upstairs and check them out. After he just kicked them out of the studio, kicked them out of the kitchen. I was really into pop music. I would say that. I was really into pop music. Right. Because I used to watch a lot of television. I used to like people like, I used to like Cliff Richards, the Beatles, the Shadows. You know the Shadows. I used to like the Shadows. They did a really fantastic tune. I've always been singing anyway, from ever since I can remember. I've always been singing. You know, but over here, like I said, from school, I was really influenced a lot by pop bands. I will say that. A lot of people say that, oh, I was influenced by this. I'm saying, I'm just going to be truthful about it. I was influenced by a lot of pop artists. And I think in many ways, so were people like Bob Marley. I mean, I used to listen to, obviously, I used to listen to people like The Temptations, Impressions, and I had some white friends, particularly a guy I used to go to art school with called Keith Jewett. And Keith, he knew everything about me. He was just so aware of all the stuff that was going on. So he was like, he was somebody who used to feed me stuff, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, like, I got into John Mayall through Keith Jewett, and then into a lot of black music I hadn't known about before he introduced me to John Mayall. You understand? So so Keith was very influential that way on me. You know, where it came down to pop and blues and stuff like that. Because I later got into blues again via Rolling Stones, funny enough. And a lot, you know, it's kind of strange because it's just like I'm always reading, you know, Melody Maker and stuff. I always get stuff like so basically, I would find out the Rolling Stones were influenced by black people, and then so were the Beatles. And then I started to check it out. Well, hold on a second. Well, how come we didn't know about all this stuff? I ended up doing a lot of session work with the Pioneers, just going to studios with them and doing backing vocals and stuff like that. Then I met up people like Bob Andy, and in fact, Bob Andy was one of the first people who actually took me to studio to do my own stuff. And it was really with the Wailers that I started to really learn stuff with Johnny Nash, I should say, with Johnny Nash and Bob Marley initially. You know, I used to go to studio quite a lot with them and see how they did things on a more professional level from how it was down at the grassroots level. The musicians that eventually became Aswood used to work with me initially. I did use people like George Oban, although George wasn't the bass player, but because a lot of people were struggling at the time and I had some money, I thought, okay, get them in and rope them in and get them to do stuff. It was like a kind of tight-knit little, you know, bunch of people. We always worked together because we all sort of grew up together. He was a really different kind of artist, did different type of artwork from everyone else. His stuff didn't look like, you know, didn't look like the average stuff out there. It used to look kind of different. So a lot of Palmer labels, like I said, he was responsible for designing those labels like the Camel label, the Palmer label, and had its own unique kind of look about it. I remember seeing Groucho, long, scruffy looking jumper, and he's looking very dejected. So I went over and asked him what he did and stuff like that. So he said, oh, he wants to, it's just, I think it's just at school or art school or something like that, and he wants to get into some art, you know, get his stuff, get into the art department, get some of his work done by, used by the art department. So I said, okay, I know people in the company, so I'd, you know, take him around. But then I took him downstairs, funny enough, and I said it was Godwin Logie. Godwin was like an in-house engineer at Island at the time. And when I took him down into the studio, his eyes opened up because it's a fairly impressionable kind of place. And he just took a shine to like the studio equipment and wanted to find out how it worked, you know? So that was how he got introduced to Godwin. And then Godwin said that he could maybe come down there sometime and help out as a tape op. And that was where the whole thing started up with Groucho. Because I think he started doing the studio engineering, and then via the studio, people started noticing that he could do, you know, he was fairly good artist. Osibisa, for me, I think the Afro rock stuff at the time was really, really interesting. You know, the Afro rock thing was really sort of prominent, but Osibisa was the most outstanding of those bands. As a black group, they had like an image, you know, and they were working with concept. The band is, they're a group that their origins are like Grenada, but they were a really good group as well. They're from Shepherd's Bush. In fact, Estelle is one of the daughters of Guy Sons of Bandits, which his name is Mikey. We call him Omawali now. But he's Estelle's father. I mean, we could talk a lot about the Metro because of what it represented to the youth, not just in Ladbroke Grove, but right around Paddington and Kensal Rise, even Harlesden, because there just weren't any black youth clubs.
Yeah.
There wasn't any of those facilities put up specifically for young black youth. A lot of younger kids, younger guys, my lot, they ended up saying that we should do our own thing. So we started to look around to see if we could get a place, because everybody started mucking and put some money together. So I started doing things down at what became Subterranean. It was then called Acklam Hall. So I started putting on the same type of things that we were doing at the Metro. Of all the record companies, because I've been at CBS and everybody else, you know, but I think that Virgin was the best record company ever in England. And, you know, I don't know, everything that Richard Branson does works the same way. So at the end of the day, I have to give them a lot of credit, because, I mean, they were the ones that really went to town and worked on me as an artist. This is the reggae capital of the UK. You know what I mean? You know, we can talk about Brixton, we can talk about maybe Hackney, because Hackney's got big history as well. But the thing about it is, most of those people from everywhere else you sort of gravitate to here. Ken Booth used to live in, you know, to rest here as well. Dennis Brown. So if you look at all the major reggae, Jamaican reggae artists, at one point in time they've lived here.
Yeah.
Some of them still do. You know what I'm saying? So this area, like I said, you know, I think later on it will go down. It will be going down in history as you know, a place where a lot of development happened. I mean, Ladbroke Grove was a more cultural kind of area where, you know, it was more arty. Harlesden was kind of more, it was just straight musical.